Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Keys to AWS Optimization. We are back with season 13. But don't worry, I'm not here just for myself. I have three lovely guests coming up to do the do's and don'ts of dashboards. But before we go into that, just a reminder that you can add any comments, questions throughout the chat, or if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Throughout today's do's and don'ts, we want to hear any tips and advice that you have when it comes to dashboards. Couple of bits of housekeeping. The first one is I'm going to be speaking at the London Summit about Gen AI and bias in Gen AI specifically. So make sure you check out my LinkedIn. I'll be posting all about that, but I'll be in the village in the afternoon. If you're coming to London Summit, come say hi and let us know about any FinOps optimizations you have done. But let's get into the show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch, and I'm a Senior Optimization Solution Architect Advocate here to help you on your FinOps journey. Today, I'm going to be joined by Ali, Yuri, and Alex, who you have all seen many times on the show, to bring their advice about dashboards. We know that cost and dashboards are kind of synonymous these days, and so I wanted to give you any tips when you are making your own dashboards. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on my first guest. Hey, Ali.
Hello.
It feels like a hot minute. You were just here. You were just on the last episode.
I know I'm back. It's like, I hope this continues. Maybe I get to come like once a month, once every other month, once a quarter.
We'll just give you the third chair. I just need to have more of you.
I love it.
But we have to kick off with our formal question, which is, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week so far?
I'd say splurgy. It just got back from spring break and I spent a lot of money on it.
Fair enough. That kind of time of year. Where did you go? Anywhere fun?
I went to Palm Desert, enjoyed some sunshine. I did not go to Coachella.
Is that where it is? I know nothing about Coachella. Classic British person. I have no idea. But
right down there. We did Babychella instead. A lot of kids.
Oh, so sweet. Love that. I know what you mean. I was away on holiday in Europe. A much less sunny trip, I would assume. I was in Budapest, Vienna, and Bratislava. So very busy, kind of lots of heavy food is how I would describe that trip.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of costs and splurging, dashboards. Now, your bread and butter is dashboards. And so I want to start with a leading question before we get into the do's and don'ts, which is, what generally makes a good dashboard?
I think it comes down to simplicity, making something that's clear, intuitive, and then customizable.
Okay. Very simple things that you want to add because they're there to solve a problem, right? I feel like people forget they often want something that just looks nice.
Yes, a dashboard it should be something that can stand alone. You're not always going to be there with the folks who are using your dashboards.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's get into some of these do's and don'ts. So the idea behind this day is that we wanted to share advice in kind of a structured way so that these are lessons learned from some amazing dashboard creators. So why don't you, from your point of view, give us the first do for dashboards?
Well, I think it all starts with data. So the first do would be understand your data and get it in a line first. And the reason why that is what's feeding your dashboard? What is actually creating all these insights is the data. So first, I'd recommend you want to first understand your data. And Steph, the best way to do that is, how do you know what data is available to you? Conduct that data inventory. Create your data inventory. Mm-hmm. Now you have your data inventory. What do you do with it? Map it to your business processes. Is this data relevant? Is it important? Mm-hmm. All right, you've now found that your data is important. Let's say, like, for example, with a lot of the dashboards that I created, the cost and usage report, one of my favorite reports. You need to validate that the data is accurate and complete. And the reason for that is if you show data that isn't accurate or isn't complete or has, inaccurate information to it, you're going to lose trust in the folks who are using it. And so I think at the beginning, it's really important to understand your data, how it works, what's important about it, and also the refresh cycles too. For example, with the cost and usage report, it can refresh multiple times in a day. Typically, when you're doing a dashboard, I would actually only have it refresh once in the evening or at a specific time so that my teams would know that their data is not going to change in the middle of their workday for them. So they don't go to a meeting with their boss in the morning, and in the afternoon, the boss goes and checks again, and he's like, why did it change? I don't get this.
Yeah, I'd never have thought of that as an issue halfway through the day. That is such a good point. The other aspect you said about kind of checking the data, there's often, and I believe this is right, when I was a customer, I would assume about 2 weeks after the month ended, that's when everything else kind of comes in and the data is finalized. So sometimes having those big reports going out later is something to be mindful of.
Yes, and I think this is where AWS has definitely, stepped up the game. Coming from being a customer, I've watched that time to close at the end of the month decrease significantly too. The easiest rule of thumbs, and I'll try not to be too curse specific on this call, but it's hard not to, but is looking at the invoice ID. If there's an invoice
Yeah.
ID next to a line item, that line item's been finalized. So if you ever want to just do a
Ah.
quick check, you can see how many are on there. Also, call to action, just future always looking at ways that we can improve. If there's a way that you guys use, how do you figure out what the month is closed?
Yeah.
Paste that in there or share it after. I'm always interested to hear how other folks think about that.
Definitely. And we have a prompt question on here, or a kind of suggestion. I like to see a note at the bottom of the dashboard that shows the last time it was refreshed, which is very cool if you can add that kind of thing in.
Definitely. I think adding the last time it's refreshed, and then something we also do is try to normalize the data off of the last full data set. So looking at a service that or an area that it's your data. So say you have different hours within it, calling out, the data was last refreshed on this date and it shows data up until X, Y, and Z.
Right. And then we've also had a comment with enterprise support. I think it's the 16th. That's probably what I'm thinking about. But yeah, making sure you have that concept, that kind of buffer in so that no one makes any big decisions between that. Okay, let's go on to your first don't for a dashboard.
It's going to follow along with data. Don't overcomplicate the data. And I think that's
Okay.
key with it is like, think about the cur again. I'll just keep consistency for this call. But the cur is what can be hundreds of columns. You can really overcomplicate it. Resist the urge to use all the data. Pick and choose the ones that are going to tell your story. And by that, it's, you don't need to throw every single data point into a visual. What is the story you're trying to tell? Don't try and mix a ton of different insights into one visual. Use the dashboard to your advantage to paint a picture. Every visual should tell a story and should solve a business problem. How do you want for folks to interact with it? Use that data to first tell that story. And one key area of not overcomplicating the data is understanding the data. I know I talked a little bit about the data inventory, but any metric or data point that is presented in your dashboard should be documented. It should be a standalone, because if you're not there and someone asks a question, how do you make sure that what you're trying to tell your teams is easily said and easily standalone? So make sure that, for example, the word savings. Savings to you might mean something to someone else. So document what savings mean and how you calculated it.
And that's a good kind of point. Ali's has a famous video in the FinOps community from FinOpsX 2023. Is that one that was from?
Yeah, 2023.
Yeah. God, I just got too many years ago. All about that. I remember that session because I felt like I couldn't go to it, and then everybody afterwards was like, "Oh my God, you have to go and watch Ali's video. It was so helpful." Oh, go now. You go.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, it goes down, and I think we talk about it all the time. Like, what does a word mean to you versus someone else? So don't always assume. Always document.
Moving on, let's go to a question. I saw one earlier. Don't forget, everybody watching, you can drop in any questions, comments about this topic or about optimization, and we will try our best to answer them. Just a simple question, I guess. How about Kerr Legacy versus Kerr 2.0? Ali, do you want to give a summary of the difference between them, or I can do it?
I can. Do you want to give a summary of the difference between them, and I can give a summary of how I think about him, how I thought about him as a customer?
Yes, that would be perfect. So Kerr Legacy versus Kerr 2.0. The main couple of differences between these two is, number one, Kerr 2 has account names in and billing account names in. Just one of the best things I think about that whole data. And the other one is that it has nested columns. So when Ali was mentioning earlier the scale of the cost and use report for Kerr, it's compressed them down. So rather than having product underscore something, product underscore something, product underscore something, we just have all of it inside one column, and you can extract this data. The other thing that you could do with that kind of set up is we now have a SQL interface in the billing console that means you can do a select statement or just click the boxes and decide which columns you want. So if you want to give someone else a report that's a little bit more condensed, you could do that. But Ali, what are your thoughts when it came to being a customer on this view?
I think it's always important to enable all the types. And so if you have a legacy CUR, I know, like, for example, a lot of folks with a legacy CUR are under the impression, if it's not broken, don't change it if it's working
Yeah.
for you. But I still think it's important to enable CUR 2.0 because
Mhm.
at some point there's probably going to be a benefit or a change or an area of a catalyst within your business that it makes sense to switch to CUR 2.0. So have that enabled, understand it, and also make sure you weigh the cost and benefits of, what version you're using. But on top of that, there's also a focus CUR too. So enable that as well, because I think that's a key of, like, there's always going to be new questions that come up as the expert of the data, as the FinOps or the data dashboard or whoever your role is. If you're on this call, you probably have some form of a stake in it. It's to be informed and aware. And so if you have them all enabled and you're able to understand the differences between them, you can pick and choose the right one for your business use case.
Brilliant. And we had another point, which is I think it actually takes a long time to understand the context. It does. There are so many columns I don't even know what's going on in there. So spending some time getting to know that cost and useful. I remember, I feel like in an interview for a job I had years ago, I don't know if it was this one where I had to explain the different columns, and by that time I knew them by heart, and I could explain them.
I used to be able to, like, tell the order they would go in up to a certain
Yeah.
point. That would be this column in an Excel if you export a quicker export of it.
Which is so funny. We also had a comment asking about CID. Do not worry, but we'll be moving on to CID when we bring Yuri on shortly, so hold fire for that. But Ali, I want to hear another do from you.
The most important way is making sure it's accessible. So a do make it work for your business and make it accessible for your teams. And by that, you want to integrate with think about how do you give them access? How do you make sure folks have access to it? So when you're dashboarding, create a consistent mechanism for your teams to get access. Maybe you implement SSO, so you have a single sign-on mechanism that already scales with your existing processes. Maybe you're just beta testing this out and you want to just do direct access to a dashboard while you're getting started. So make sure your teams have access. Now they have access, but you also want to make sure they have the right role within it. For example, Steph, if you're the creator of the dashboard, you're probably going to have full admin access, full edit access. A business user probably only needs a read only, and maybe they only are able to see their segment or their team's data. So make sure you set up those parameters of, as a user, what should that user see? What is their access controls and how do they access it?
Yeah, and from a specific point of view, when it comes to cost, if we're talking about QuickSight specifically, only your authors, you need to have authors specifically different to your readers because there's a different price construct with those. So authors you pay is £18 with pounds. Where am I paying? $18 a month if you have a subscription for an annual subscription for a year. So if you have everybody have that, your fees will be higher. So you have to be very mindful about what role you give people in terms of the entire account. Because I feel like we've seen customers before just let anybody have any access when it comes to QuickSight and end up blowing their budget on that kind of a thing.
That's a really great point. And I think one of the questions I used to get a lot is like, I want author access. Why can't I have it? And my question to them would be, why do you need it? Let's talk about what your use case is if you're trying to take a dashboard that's available and just customize it and change it, the dashboard isn't serving the purpose. So let's go back and understand your business use case and see how you're using it, understand how you interact with it. And Yuri's going to talk a little bit more about customizations later, but I think that's where it comes key is like, if you have a lot of folks asking for that edit access, there's probably something a little bit missing, or we need to change the culture on how they're interacting with it.
Definitely. Yeah, people always want more. It's because if you want to download it into an Excel sheet, which everyone does, then maybe the dashboard isn't doing the thing it's meant to be doing. But it is a good way to learn, which is, I think Alex put this in there, which is why making dashboards is helpful because you understand what your cost and usage data is. In that case, I would say let the person maybe have a read-only, or not read-only, access to run Athena queries to kind of play with the data. It doesn't have to be in QuickSight. That can often be a bit more valuable. All right, moving on. Let's do don't. Is that what we're in?
Yep, we're on a don't now. Don't try to visualize everything.
Oh.
You have you have a dashboard. The dashboard is to tell a story. Um, if that story becomes a 1,000-page book, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose the point, and you're not going to be able to have them drawn to the details that you want them to know, the metrics. So, for example, like a good test of this is every visual on a dashboard should have a so what. Why is this important?
Ah. Okay, so you're looking at a dashboard and you think, what, as in, why is a specific visual? Why the data?
Uh, the visual within it, because the data, I think the data is going to use what you populate the story in. But like, if you think about a visual, the visual might show unit cost or a KPI. Why does that? Why should someone spend the time to look at that? Why is it important? Does it tell to the story? Because what I've seen a lot of people do is sometimes they'll just throw a lot of metrics on one page.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's always the best use of a user's time, because now you give them a lot of data points, but what is that going to drive from an action? Is it just going to drive confusion? And so how do you make sure that every metric and every visualization has an action to prompt from it?
Right. That it's such an interesting point about, especially because I feel like people just put data in, and even I feel like I use other people's dashboards and it doesn't do exactly what I want, and it doesn't actually inform me of the information I need. So having that critical view, and that I guess is where peers come in, right? So if you have this dashboard, if it's just for you, then it's solving your business need, fine. But if this is going to the wider audience, and I think we find this a lot with FinOps people sharing a dashboard with developers, is that the developers see it and they're like, what is this going to do with me? How am I supposed to use this information? So figuring out what the narrative is going to be really, just a really interesting point about how you can kind of control that, and then get people to, as you used to suggest, get people to review the dashboard and not criticize it, but see if it actually helps them do their job. And if it doesn't provide the right information, to have a feedback mechanism for that, right? Did you have any of that when you were sharing data internally?
Feedback mechanism, that's stuff so important. Like, and I think we did, because a lot of times, and Yuri can probably attest to this, Alex, even I know, Steph, you probably would say, I would show a visual and I'd be like, I think this is such a really great data, a visual, it makes a great point. You guys would say, are you sure about that? I don't think it's telling the story you want it to tell. And I think that's where you want to always periodically audit the dashboard. You can look at usage metrics within it, pull feedback from the folks who are using it, because what you thought was a visual that helped your teams at the beginning might not still be that same story today. Maybe they've evolved, maybe they've matured, maybe their business use cases has changed slightly. Make sure your dashboard is staying relevant, and the way to do that is to audit it.
Alex said that she was always nice about it. So if you have any of her feedback. We also have a question from Cloud Strife, which is, do you put a limit on the number of visuals per page, or is there a good rule of thumb for this kind of a metric?
I don't think there's a good rule of thumb. I think it depends on what you're doing. For example, and I know Yuri's going to talk more into them, but there's a page on the KPI dashboard that has a ton of metrics, but it's really only 5 or 6 visuals. There's just a lot of metrics in it, but that page is set up specifically as like a metric scorecard type of view. Mm-hmm. And so I think it goes down to, what are you trying to get out of that information on that page, and is it serving the right purpose? And so I would say use your teams who are going to be using it to ask them that question, and define a rule that makes sense for your teams. Like, for example, we found that the happy medium is X number of visuals, or not having more than this number of KPIs on a single page.
Yeah. There's no hard limit, especially it's like, you do, I guess also there should be some kind of narrative on a page, right? Especially if you have different tabs of a dashboard, why are these together is a fair kind of question. There should be something that flows through, right?
Yes. And actually on that point, why are there different tabs? One of my biggest pain points is when someone tries to create another dashboard because they wanted to do something slightly different. And that becomes okay, let's add a filter. Let's add a toggle. Let's add a different way to use it and interact with it. Because what you'll find is less is more when it comes to dashboards. If you have to maintain 10 dashboards that are all telling a similar story, or 20 dashboards that are telling a similar story, that becomes a lot of overhead. So every dashboard should have a purpose. And I know Yuri's going to talk about some existing, dashboards, but if you look at what they are, all of them serve a certain business process, a certain business purpose. It's not this dashboard for this team. That's a filter on your existing dashboard.
Yeah, definitely. And someone's even put just now, Frosty is, but also a good idea to use account name in a dashboard instead of account number. Reminder Cur 2.0 has that. As you're right, people don't know their account IDs off by heart. Crazy freelance people like us do sometimes when we spend a lot of time in there. But it is also one of those things that if you want someone to be have something that's findable, then it's so much easier to have it that way. And then grouping data by if you have any tags or projects. Think about how people are actually going to interact with this. Are they going to want to see just that? Do it. The worst thing I always found people, then they have to go click in for those 3 accounts they manage. Why not combine those and then have it together so there's less work? It's just what you're laughing at. Savannah knows so many of mine by heart. It's just like crazy metrics.
I am laughing at that because it is so true. And I think a lot of us, and I think that's a really good test, is like there's a lot of people who are going to be more power users. They're going to know their accounts. They're going to know everything. But to your point, Steph, don't assume that you're going to have a business user that comes in that they want to just quickly filter to what they own.
Yeah.
So how do you make the data usable for the folks like Savannah, who's going to say, oh, I'm just going to go right to this account. I know exactly what I want to do. I'm just going to filter for that account by that ID. And another person say, I might just want to filter by my team.
Mm-hmm. Be able to do this. Okay, let's move on to our last do before we bring on Yuri.
Okay. The last do is scale. You have your data, you have your dashboards. How do you focus on scale? And a key thing with scale is once you show a dashboard, it should continue to be easy to accessible and consistent for your teams. So you want to make sure that dashboard can scale from the data that's supporting it to the way the teams are accessing it to as your teams are growing, that it can still scale from a performance standpoint too. So make sure you're looking at the scale aspect of it, and also make sure you're looking at the changes in your business. I know I talked about this, but scaling also means scaling to the changing needs of your business, not just scaling to the data changes as well.
Yeah, and this person says, great suggestion. Thank you for letting us know. Also, guys, remember you can put any comments, questions in there and we'll answer any of them. I had someone previously be like, is Steph actually watching our comments? And I was like, I can see everything. But yeah, scaling, making sure it works for everybody, reaching all the different people. And also, guys, make sure everyone has access before you start the scale. That's one thing I found is someone says, when you try and go into the dashboard, someone's had this really cool thing and it's going big and then no one's set up the right policies for everyone to get access.
That is so true. It goes back to like the audit. Always audit when you're doing your audit who has access, what they're using within it, because a user might not be accessing it that had access. And from a security standpoint, should they still have access then?
Yeah. And also, can you use any access metrics to say who's a power user? Who is someone that is accessing that dashboard regularly that you could maybe ask for feedback, like we said earlier? Or is there something that they really love doing that they could show to other people in the business? We're always trying to drive people to look at their data. If you have a developer or a certain person in your organization who loves looking at this dashboard, maybe they could become an advocate for it and start sharing that information.
Yep. And so, Steph, I'll close with asking you a question.
Okay.
What is a don't that you have?
Oh, I don't. I think I'll lead off of what I said, which is saying, but don't make it too hard to find. I think sometimes with dashboards, people have this dashboard and they work on it and it's really good. And then they'll kind of share it a bit with some people. When in reality, if you have a good dashboard, tell everyone about it, make the process to get access to it very simple. If you can, like Ali mentioned, SSO, if you can put it somewhere that people can easily find it, they're more likely to access it. And if you can make it something that they do regularly, so there's a story I tell, which is, do you know who Terry Crews is? The actor.
I don't know who Terry Crews is.
I think you'd reckon he's in like White Chicks and he's in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And he talks about the gym, and as people know, I'm a gym person, and he talks about if you're trying to get into the gym, the first week or 2 weeks, you should just go to the gym. Don't do anything. Just go, maybe get a bottle of water, fill it up, and then leave. And then after a bit of a time, you will develop the habit of going to the gym. And while you're there, you're like, I might as well go on the trainer or lift some weights or whatever. And it becomes less scary because you've already built the process. You've already built the time into your day. And the same with dashboards. If there's some place that everybody already goes, make it part of a habit so that if that's in a review meeting or if it's in your daily stand-up or whatever it is, have it as a regular process and it just becomes part of the normal ecosystem.
That is very great. I like that.
I was like, thank you, Terry Crews. I saw it on TikTok.
I need to go look up Terry Crews now because I know the movie,
Oh,
but I don't know Terry.
yeah, I'll see if I can find it for you. And then the last one we had was don't overclutter, which is a great thing. And someone has found my little emoji. If in the chat, if you have a look at the emojis, you can see me lifting a big weight above my head, which we did for a live stream years ago, which is quite funny. So you couldn't find that. Okay, thank you so much, Ali, for all of your suggestions and feedback. And chat, keep the questions coming. And I'm just going to bring on our second guest. Hey, buddy.
Hey everyone.
Hi, Harry.
Hey, Christopher, how are you?
Good, good. Right, before we move on, I want to know, Yuri, what is your frugal or splurgy week question compared to Ali?
Spludgy, spring break the same, Legoland with kids and then Champagne region with my wife. So it's, yeah,
Oh my
I cannot call it frugal.
I'm just like, hang on a second. Where was my invite to Legoland? I'm like, the Champagne region, I don't care. I want to go to Legoland. I'm such a big kid.
Yeah, it's fantastic, to be honest. It's for adults. It's amazing. So it's third time I'm there and I'm having so much fun. It's amazing.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much, Ali. We'll say goodbye. And you can reach out to Ali on LinkedIn. We'll share all of her info in the comments below on YouTube. Thanks. Bye. All right, Yuri, let's get into some do's and don'ts of dashboards. And in your section, we're going to be going off with a bit of a demo in a bit. But I want to ask a quick question because we talk a lot about the CIDs, the cloud intelligence dashboards. We have a bit of a joke on this show where there should be a timer on how long it takes for me to bring them up. But why did you and Ali kind of make those dashboards in the first place?
Yeah, it all came from the fact that we needed to solve some real customer problems, So we built these dashboards for our customers because customers were facing some challenges, and we actually needed to take some time to dive deeper into the data to learn the structure of core and bring some insights out of it and show it to our customers. What happened afterwards is that customers loved it. And then we showed it to other peers, other TAMs, other optimization architects. And the first question which we've got is, oh, can I have the same? And also from the customers, can I have the same? How can I have it available for myself? It looks great. Because people are lazy. They don't want to spend hours on discovering cores. There are some people who like it.
Yeah.
But not everyone. It's not everyone. So, and apparently we figured out a way how to make it available for internal community of SMEs and also for customers. So pretty much what happened is whatever we built for pretty complex enterprise support customers, who have pretty much huge AWS consumption, we made it available for everyone else. So I usually call our dashboards, it's one of the largest FinOps knowledge bases. So basically, instead of kind of going in and reading the blog posts, how to figure out something from cost and usage report, you can just get it out of the box, available at your fingertips, right?
Yeah, and Alex even just put as well, in the early days too, the dashboard really helped less technical customers understand how amazing the data is and answer questions that they probably thought was just really out of their reach when it comes to that. And I love this. I love the AWS. Love the AWS CDs because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. I hate reinventing the wheel.
Exactly.
It's perfectly good thing.
And one of the coolest things that once we started to roll out it internally to TAMs, SAs, and to customers, we started to get massive amount of feedback. Hey, it's great, but I it would be great if you had this kind of thing, or I found this challenge with my customer and I figure out how to visualize it. Do you want to include it in Kudos? And we started to iterate on that feedback. So basically, this thing became addictive, and over, I think, around 5 years so far, 4+ years, we always iterate and we build new stuff, and it's just amazing. So we just let customers to start not from here, but from from much better place than they used to.
Okay, let's get into some do's and don'ts. So let's kick off with a do. So Yuri, what's your first do with dashboards?
Yeah, so first do with dashboards, it's, someone said don't reinvent the wheel, and it's more discover what is available, right? And I think Ellie touched slightly on this. So sometimes people just want to build something and they bring it to show to other people and say, look, but there is already such thing available. So, and they're like, oh, I spent hours on it, and great. So like explore what is available, try it out, and
Yeah.
maybe build on top rather than reinventing the wheel. So
Yeah.
look at what is available, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and check internally. I think I hear this from customers all the time where someone's made a dashboard and someone's made a dashboard, and then they get annoyed that two people have made dashboards. And everyone does that. Even here in Amazon, people are always doing similar things. And it's the best things that happen actually are when people combine these to make something better. So, what's the best parts of this and the best parts of this, and kind of smush those together to make something good. Pete has put, it's a massive amount of information in the CIDs. It's true. Those things are huge. And there is so many fun things to kind of dive into with
so
it.
it's like explore which dashboards available already for you. Like it's all open source. It's all you can deploy it, check it out. You can take it under the hood, and also explore which visuals are available, right? Because I just kind of just walk through them,
Yeah.
check them out, and see what you find useful and what not.
hmm And let's do a don't before we go into your demo.
Yeah, don't. I I often, for example, it's regarding the CID dashboards and overall, I often hear that people think about our dashboards as FinOps only dashboards, while at the same time we went over the years we went beyond just FinOps topics. So we have so many other things which you might find helpful in your optimization, and I can just bring my screen and quickly show it. So we try to build the dashboards which cover particular use cases. So, for example, if Kudos goes into insights and details of your cost and usage, for example, KPI dashboard actually structures your core or cost and usage report in a collection of really, really fine-grained KPIs, which you can start with, right? And then we have a lot of dashboards which actually go beyond the FinOps. So that what I was telling, it's like don't think that it's only about FinOps. So for example, Trusted Advisor dashboard, it covers performance, it covers fault tolerance, it covers security, a lot of things there. Then we have things like extended support cost projection. It's kind of FinOps, but this dashboard actually allows you to collect inventory data for your RDS instances, EKS clusters, OpenSearch clusters, and see the ones which are running on the not supported by community versions and the ones which are going to run on not supported community version when those versions will become out of support, right? So you actually can, and you will see the cost which associated with this extended support. So it's more like you can see the clusters which you need to migrate and associated price tag with it. And then we have like very operational things like health events dashboard. And for every dashboard, you can click on demo link and just check it out, how it looks like. Or for example, support cases dashboard. So if you work with AWS support, you probably want to see a centralized place when you can see all the support cases in one place, right? Where you can have a very nice report for them. And you can just, let me just show how it looks like. So you can just use the support cases dashboard where you can see all the details about your support cases. You can explore which cases, like by subject, by service, by account, with account names, by the way. And what the cool part there is that we also use, you can install GenAI plugin, which actually makes you executive summary of the case. So you really don't need to read all communications to understand what's going on in particular case. You actually have a very nicely summarized text of everything that was going on in particular case. So it's very nice application of GenAI in this case as well, right?
Is that GenAI in QuickSight or is that outside of it?
No. It's we basically allow to, let me show it here. So it's advanced dashboards, support cases radar, and we allow customers to deploy like a optional plugin. So, and this plugin, on the time when support cases data is collected, this plugin will call Amazon Bedrock, and will summarize all the communication of the case, and will store it. So, and then basically we use the summary as just one of the columns in the in the data.
Awesome. I didn't know that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. So again, one more thing that like instead of like that's how easily you can just make a quick summary of lots and lots of data which is going on under the hood. And yeah, and then another very interesting use case is health events dashboard, which actually allows you to visualize all the AWS health events that we send to you as a customer. And customers receive thousands of emails about some MSK cluster is going to be on end of support version or something like that. So again, like this is an eagle eye view to see all those events. So a lot of things which go beyond the FinOps.
Yeah. Okay. Quick sidebar question. What's your favorite dashboard?
My favorite dashboard, all of
Yeah.
them. I like all
No,
of them.
they're like children.
It's a no look like overall my baby is kudos, so it's
Yeah.
it's our kind of how to say the most popular, and it's our flagship dashboard which customers start with, right? And usually get into this all. So yeah, but look, every dashboard, like there is, while we have some like authors of particular dashboards, and I just want to recognize that it's a lot of efforts from the team there. Like I help to review them. I help to bring some additional insights based on my experience. So like all of them for me, my favorite.
I love this. In the comments, people are kind of like asking the hard stuff. You have to pick one. I got some shout outs in the comments for dashboards that they love, which is great. Let me know in the comments, what is your favorite dashboard? Cool Guy Travis says, I'm a big Graviton savings dashboard. Shout out to Rosa. And also COPS optimization dashboard, a classic. Alex as well saying that the Graviton one is great. And Alex, who is coming on next, is saying KPI is the favorite. She made it. She's very biased, and she knows that. I'm biased. Before we move on, I have a quick question for a couple of questions from the audience. So we were talking earlier about CAD 2.0. So I have a question, which is my concern. If I go to CAD 2.0 for CID, I'll have to request a backfill and wait to get applied for the new data export. Any kind of alleviation of this concern, or is that what the stages are?
Well, look, yeah, you need to request backfill, but from the other side, it's just like raising a support case, and everything will be done for you. And if you look at our migration guide, you can enable Core 2.0. So if you follow the step by step, so like deploy data exports. So basically, you deploy data exports, and once you deploy data exports, you can request the backfill. And only then, after the data is backfilled, you can switch the dashboard to use Core 2.0. So it's step 2. So you basically are updating your dashboards to actually point it to Core 2. So in my opinion, generally, yes, you need to raise the backfill, but it's a parallel run. So you can switch only when your data is there. You switch your dashboards to Core 2.0, and you always can roll back if you want. So you can switch it back. So it's, I would say I don't see it as a big blocker.
And another question, which was, any suggestions on how to handle character count that exceeds the QuickSight character count?
Yeah, that's the interesting one, and Pete is going into really deep dive questions. So yes, there is a limitation in QuickSight. I mean, what you can do is you need to split your column into several ones, and then you can concatenate as a calculation field in QuickSight. So generally, that's what we do, for example, in health events dashboard, where the description of event is sometimes very long. So we split it into several columns in Athena, and then in QuickSight, we actually concatenate.
Okay. And he said he might have seen this in the support tickets. Maybe that's why. So thank you for the advice. Right. We're running low on time. I'm using so give us one more quick do and don't from your side.
Yeah, very quick do is, I think one of the biggest challenges in building the good dashboards is understanding the questions which you want to answer with the dashboard. So every dashboard should answer some questions, So, and by knowing the question which you want to answer with the dashboard helps a lot, because that Ellie was mentioning, like, don't overcomplicate your dashboards. And overcomplication usually comes when people don't think about the questions which you want to answer with your dashboard. So focus on the questions which you want to answer, and focus on the audience for which you build your dashboard. So understand what they need. For example, more executive like personas mostly will be interested in something like month over month trends, like quarter over quarter, so more high level details. But more operational folks would love to see like daily data, when you have some spikes, so you on top of it, you can notice it in the middle of the month. You don't need to wait to end of months. So know your audience, know your questions which you want to answer. And yeah, and that's I think one of the most important parts when you build a good dashboard.
Yeah. Any other? Was that a do or a don't? My brain just went.
It will do. And then don't. It's like, I would say, don't hesitate to build on top. So the beauty, for example, of TAD, and that's what customers love, that you can customize every single part of it. You can actually change like every widget, every visual, every calculation. So don't hesitate to just build on top. There is no such thing as one size fits all. When we talk about the organizations, every organization is unique, every team is unique. So don't hesitate to customize them, adjust them. And we have plenty of customization guides on our page. There are so many different cool things, like, you can convert your currency to your local currency if you want. You can bring your organizational taxonomy. So you discussed a lot about account names, but reality is account names are great. They help a lot. But what also usually needed is more like business taxonomy, like what my business units are. How can I, like, this account ID, what business unit it belongs to, what environment, is it dev, is it prod, what maybe team it belongs to. So actually you can integrate this all with AWS organizations, tag your accounts with respective tags, and bring this all to the dashboard. So we have customization guide for that as well. So many opportunities to actually bring it all closer to your organization, make it like really set it up with terminologies that clear for you and to your team.
For sure. And the other question, which is, what's your favorite customization? Mine is going to be row level security, because that one I think is something that you really helps people. We talked earlier about my gym analogy, and one thing I always think about is, imagine if you had to go to your kind of account and you had to select all of those accounts that are yours every single time. You get tired. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't be bothered to click these accounts. Row-level security will enable you to go in and just see what matters to you. And immediately that makes you feel so much better, especially with cost optimization. If you go in and see the whole organization could save, I don't know, $100,000 a month, and then you go into your account individually and say, oh, it's $1, you're not really going to make the change. Versus if you always see that $1 in your account, you might as well make the change.
Yeah.
All right, Ro. I'm going to bring in Alex, our final guest. Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Oh, you should probably unmute. Saving the best for last.
Obviously. Anything we touched on that you want to ask Yuri and I about customizations of dashboards?
Oh, I mean, I was asking away in the comments.
That's true, yeah. The Alex you were referring to, if you didn't know, was the chat. All right, Yuri,
thank you. Fun over there. I like the comment section.
I love Alex have the same handle since we started, so it's always easy for me to figure out. Alex, on to the best for last, as you said. So let's go into our first question, which is obviously, have you had a frugal week or a splurgy week? I just want to know what everyone's been up to.
So I would say splurgy because it's tax week. And that hasn't been fun, which then turned my week into a frugal week because had zero taxes. But I got to go to my first show ever at Madison Square Garden in New York, and that was a bit splurgy, but it was so much fun. So it's been a good week. Then this is a great way to go towards the end of it. Not wrap it up yet, but get there.
Or they want to know, what show was it?
The Allman Brothers. They did a reunion show. It was really fun.
Cool. Glad you enjoyed it.
They're from Macon, Georgia, which is where I was born. So
of course. All right, let's go into a first question to set the scene for you, which is, you have so many dashboards, you've used all these dashboards. What makes you go back and reuse a dashboard?
Yeah, so I'm dashboard obsessed. I'm obsessed. I would say, I see multiple dashboards a day. And I think that there's just never a limit on different ways to see data. It helps me, it helps my mind turn. But I always go to where I can get like the quick wins, the gut checks. If I'm walking into a room with a customer, what can I just like have a quick check and have some knowledge statements or check for red flags? Recently though, with like AI and all of that evolving, I have been for dashboards I'm newer to, recording, like transcribing myself, walking through, trying to figure out something. So trying to answer a question of, I wonder if this customer is experimenting with different models of AI. And I'm clicking through and I'm talking it through. And then I take that transcription and I put it in Claude and say, what would the best dashboard view be if I needed to like continuously get this? And that's helped me a lot too, because I tend to over customize at times. And that really does bring me though to my first do. I'm going to jump right into my first do, because yes, when you find that view, when you have that moment that you had a quick win, or it really got a good gut check, or you had a good reaction from a customer, bookmark it right away. I have a dashboard, it's probably one of yours, honestly, that helped me so much 3 reInvents ago that I still has as one of my top bookmarks for when I'm with a customer that I'm not used to, because the initial view just it told me a story. It told me a little bit of their journey, and that was so helpful. And it also gave me some of their wins right off the bat, which if you've ever watched me on the show, I'm very big on like, you don't just come in and say, hey, this is everything you're doing wrong. I think you should say, hey, you're doing a really, really good job here. But maybe we could do this better.
Yeah, and having that balance in a dashboard is important, right? You need to show that the highlight the good and the bad. There's no point if every time you go to a dashboard and it's someone telling you bad at your job, you're not going to go look at the dashboard. You're going to avoid it. It's going to be too much.
On that too, when a dashboard resonates with someone in your audience. So like I have some bookmarks that when I'm presenting to really financial people or high up finance people at a customer, or maybe within Amazon, that view resonates with them, and I save it. So I kind of have my two folders of, here's like Alex's go-to. I think it's called my golden file. And then I have, what is a quick thing to grab for a customer, right? Like what would that really help with?
Yeah, I am in the chat as well. I think this person, I've just really read the name, which was Curry's Gal.
I know it's someone I know, because
I think it's who we know. How many bookmarks do you have?
Oh, I can't. I'm in my oh gosh, yeah, in my dashboard one, I think it's 25. I should probably think.
That's so funny. All right, what about your first don't?
So don't use data and dashboards as a substitute for communication. So say your team has all access to a dashboard. We're both on optics. We had a lot of those, right? Don't just assume because you noticed something or you recognize something or you solved a problem with that dashboard that you don't have to communicate it. Use it as a communication starter. We'd had meetings that we would start every meeting with the dashboard. I'm in a new role now, and it's a little more imposter syndrome for me. I use it to build confidence. And when you do that, tell your team, tell your peers, like, hey, this is the data point. This is how I found it. Show that data is useful. Especially if you're asking someone to track or have data hygiene, show them that data hygiene is helping you make quicker decisions. Don't just assume that they know that.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm in the new role and doing something similar where I'm trying to bring together lots of data and then sharing that. But at the moment, I know I haven't done this yet, is I need to promote that this exists because it's something that optics had and now the rest of the department has it. But we need to start shouting about that But the thing we needed to do first was make sure the data, like Ali said, was accurate. We were saying earlier it's easy to find and that it's in one central location, because there's no point me creating another dashboard that had it separate. But yeah, it's all about communication. And then we're going to use that to hopefully highlight people's success stories when it comes to things that we're doing.
Yeah. And also, this kind of goes into my second too. When you're able to make a decision off of a dashboard, or when you're able to help a customer or make a change, any of that, like you're giving someone else another tool too. So like Steph, when I know there's been multiple times that, I've said, well, how did you figure that out? And you've walked me through it, and that's given me a whole new way to do it. So if data helped you, just always do. That's it. This is like one of the biggest do's. Communicate it. A great example of this is Catherine. She's been on before. When she first started, she wasn't used to our data. Why would she be? She wasn't anywhere near one of our roles. She flew to Atlanta and stood over my shoulder as I walked through data to see, and when I would find data that didn't make sense or I thought was questionable, how I investigated it, how I built confidence in it, and what path I took to be able to talk on that data. I didn't just go grab it, right? I had to build confidence in it.
Yeah, I'm smiling as I can see Secret Richard's summary title a bit. So make sure you stick around to the end to see it. He's already getting it ready. But yeah, I agree. The kind of one thing as well is have someone else know the process when it comes to the data. So I think we have this where there's sometimes you have not just one data source, it's not just the car, you might have business metrics, you might have some tag metrics or information, you might have all of these other bits you're pulling together. If you're the single point of failure, it can become quite tricky to hand that over, to expand it, because people are going to be questioning that information. If you allow them to go and see if there's a problem, like where do they, like you were just saying, follow that back, then it might be easy to solve it. It's not just on you, but just generally having more than one person understand that depth of data, even if it's not their day to day, just having someone else know the process. So if you need help, I find if you get stuck somewhere, you can have someone to bounce the ideas off and just be like, okay, what would I normally do? Let's look at this. Do you see this problem? Do I see this problem? Having a trusted kind of advisor for that, like a branding trusted advisor, is a good way of having someone else. And
I mean, that's a perfect, teach them the fish, but you're also showing them that it's worth it, that data hygiene is worth it, that using these dashboards is worth it. Like you're helping them in that. And I'll go into my last don't, because I know that I'm getting close to time, because this don't is, and I hope Andy's listening in, because I've personally learned this the hard way. Don't just, and Ali kind of alluded to this a little bit, but don't just assume a change needs to be made because you can't find a data view or you can't figure something out. I'm so guilty of this. And Andy, who I've worked with for years, he is in London, I'm in Atlanta. The amount of days that he has worked at Amazon and woken up to a broken dashboard because I went in and just decided I was going to make it more useful and I broke it is a lot. It's a miracle that we're still friends. But don't assume that you need to reinvent the wheel, right? You evolve and evolve and evolve. And I do like to tinker. So duplicate that dashboard, make a sandbox. And if you break that, who cares? And you can tinker, and maybe you tinker and end up realizing that, I just need to add this extra line item here. Or, like that's how my brain goes through it. So it's okay to do that and want to evolve the data, but don't just assume it has to be reinvented.
Yeah, I like you said, I definitely agree. Having a second version that you can kind of tinker with, also validate data. Sometimes you need, as an admin, to go in and make some weird changes and kind of mess around with it, because you want to make sure that quality of the data. Because the last one for me is, I'm trying to think of it as a do or don't. It's kind of a combination. Make sure that people trust your data, and make sure you are 100% certain before you share a dashboard, because if there's something wrong with it, you will lose trust and people will never want to use that dashboard again. And it's heartbreaking if you're like, oh no, it was a small, I just had this small thing. And they're like, well, it didn't work. I don't trust it anymore.
Yeah.
And so,
and then it's gone forever. It's gone
no one
forever.
Yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah.
Thing. That's what what I'm doing. Good, Alex.
We at last year on Optics got a lot better at, like, when we would create a new view, we kind of became best practice to write the steps of that view. So like step one, you're going to see if there's a flag here for RDS. If there is a flag, step two, you're going to see. So put your thought process on it sometimes. That can help.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's go to Secret Richard just before we close out. So if you don't know, Secret Richard sits behind the scenes. He's not AI, and he summarizes the show. Whoopie-doo. I want to dash.
I
like
want to
you.
dash.
Oh, okay, a couple of highlight tips. Don't overcomplicate your data. Look for the bare necessities. Every visual should tell a story and be documented. Focus on the question that is being answered and its audience. Dashboards are conversational starters, not a substitute.
For
Excellent.
Richard,
Every time.
I dare you to next time throw that into AI and make it create a song every time, and so Steph has to sing at the end of the show.
Because you don't want that.
Can you make this a poem version?
Yes, the script. As a reminder, all of our shows can be found on YouTube, and you can also see all the links of information at community for live stream. This is where a summary is, and we also do an AI version of the show that summarizes it that you can find on there. Any questions, feel free to email costoptimization@amazon.com. And that is it from us. We will see you all next time. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.
Thank you.